People often say that the body can betray us, that illness can take everything away. But there are rare souls who prove otherwise, people who, when faced with the unimaginable, refuse to give in. Among them, one shines brighter than the very stars he loved to study. His name is Stephen Hawking. Picture a young man, just 21, a brilliant student at Cambridge, destined for a remarkable scientific career. Then, one day, everything changes. His muscles weaken, his coordination falters. The diagnosis comes: amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, a cruel degenerative disease. The doctors tell him he has 2 years to live, 2 years before his body shuts down completely. And yet, that prediction would be shattered by the most powerful force in the universe, the power of the human mind. Stephen Hawking could have given up. He could have surrendered to despair, cursed life, and decided it was all over. But instead, he chose to think, to reflect, to dream. As his body weakened, his mind expanded like the cosmos itself. He once said, "My goal is simple, to understand the universe, why it exists, and why we exist." That single sentence defined his entire life, a life guided not by what he could no longer do, but by what he could still imagine. Resilience isn't about denying pain. It's not pretending that everything is fine. It's about staring suffering in the face and saying, "You will not define me." Hawking never tried to escape his condition. He accepted it. He learned to live with it. And by transcending it, he gave us one of humanity's greatest lessons. As the years went by, his disease continued to progress. He lost the use of his arms, his legs, even his voice. But as long as there was a single breath left in him, he used it to think, to create, to share. He communicated with a single muscle in his cheek, linked to a computer, one cheek, to speak to the world. And yet through that tiny channel, he shared ideas larger than galaxies. What makes Stephen Hawking so extraordinary isn't only his intelligence, it's the clarity with which he understood life itself. He once said, "However difficult life may seem, there is always something you can do and succeed at." Those words, spoken by a man trapped in his own body, are worth more than all the self-help books ever written. Because they don't come from theory, they come from lived truth. His life reminds us that the strength of the mind has nothing to do with the strength of the body. The body obeys physical laws, but the mind has no limits. Even when matter breaks down, thought can still create, explore, dream. When you look at Stephen Hawking, you realize the real handicap isn't being confined to a wheelchair. It's giving up on your dreams. He kept teaching, writing books, traveling, inspiring. He fell in love, laughed, argued with presidents, and joked with rock stars. All this without ever walking, without ever speaking with his own voice. What he accomplished is extraordinary, but what he embodied is even greater. The truth that nothing can stop a free mind. He could have lived in anger or fear. He chose humor. He could have lived in regret. He chose curiosity. He could have stayed silent. He chose to speak to the world. He once said, "Life would be tragic if it weren't funny." That sentence, light and ironic, reveals a deep truth. We can't always change what happens, but we can always change how we live through it. For him, humor was a weapon, a way to disarm tragedy, to make the unbearable lighter. And maybe that invisible smile was the very secret of his resilience. His life was never easy. Behind the genius was a man, tired, sometimes angry, sometimes afraid. But whenever darkness loomed, he looked up at the stars. He remembered that we are made of the same dust as galaxies, and he knew that even a small life can hold infinity. What Stephen Hawking teaches us is that resilience isn't a gift, it's a choice we make every single day, the choice to keep moving forward even when everything seems lost. He could have said, "I can't move, so my life is over." But instead he said, "As long as I can think, I can exist. And that changed everything. Today, we live in a world where the slightest inconvenience feels unbearable. We complain about the smallest obstacles. We give up when things get hard. Stephen Hawking reminds us that true greatness appears when everything falls apart. He didn't just survive, he transcended. He proved that the power of the human mind can defy fate, biology, and even death itself. He once said, "Don't give up, no matter how hard life seems. There is always something you can do and succeed at. What matters is that you never stop thinking." If you think about it, that's more than advice. It's a blueprint for life. To think, to imagine, to create. That's how we resist the gravity of life. When you face hardship, remember him. Remember that man whose body no longer obeyed, yet whose mind traveled through time and space. Remember that you don't need a perfect body to achieve something great. You just need a mind determined not to yield. We all have that strength within us, hidden beneath our fears, our doubts, our pain. Sometimes it just takes a look, a silence, a memory to awaken it. Stephen Hawking wasn't a superhero. He had no magic powers. What he had was an unbreakable will, a boundless curiosity, and a deep belief that life, even fragile, is worth living fully. His story teaches us that dignity doesn't come from strength, but from perseverance. That beauty doesn't come from perfection, but from the courage to keep going anyway. He showed us that even trapped in an unmoving body, you can be freer than those who walk without purpose. He loved to say, "Remember to look up at the stars and not down at your feet." It's perhaps the simplest, yet most powerful message he left us. To look at the stars is to choose hope over fear. It's to lift your gaze above obstacles. It's to remember that the world is vast, mysterious, full of possibilities. So next time you feel stuck, powerless, or lost, think of him. Think of that young man condemned to die at 21, who lived until 76. Think of that mind that traveled farther than any rocket. And remember, you too possess that same power, the power of the mind. Because resilience isn't reserved for heroes. It's a spark that lives within each of us. Sometimes everything must collapse for us to find it. Sometimes we have to hit the bottom to realize we can still shine. Stephen Hawking is gone, but his message remains. As long as there is thought, there is life. And as long as there is life, there is hope. So never let hardship extinguish your light. Look at the stars, and remember, even in the silence of the void, the mind can still speak.